I always thought my wedding day would be the happiest day of my life. I grew up dreaming of the white dress, the scent of fresh lilies, and the moment the heavy oak doors would swing open to reveal the man I loved waiting for me at the altar. But most of all, I dreamed of my father's arm linked through mine. I imagined him leaning in, whispering how proud he was, and walking me toward my new future. My name is Elena, and for 26 years, I was a daddy's girl, or at least, that's what I let myself believe. My father, Richard, was a man of cold principles and even colder silences. He was the kind of man who viewed love as a transaction and loyalty as something you only gave to those who followed your rules. Our relationship had always been a tightrope walk. As long as I got the grades he wanted and followed the career path he chose, we were fine. But then I met Marcus. Marcus wasn't a corporate lawyer or a high-stakes investor. He was a high school teacher with a heart of gold and a modest bank account. The moment I introduced them, I felt the air freeze. My father didn't see Marcus's kindness. He only saw a man who couldn't provide the lifestyle he thought I deserved. For months leading up to the wedding, the tension in our house was suffocating. My father didn't argue. He simply withdrew. He stopped asking about the preparations. He looked through me at dinner as if I were a ghost, but I kept telling myself it was just his way of processing. I thought, surely, when he sees me in my veil, his heart will melt. I believed that the bond between a father and daughter was unbreakable, a sacred thing that no disagreement could shatter. The morning of the wedding was a blur of hairspray and silk. My bridesmaids were buzzing around, laughing and toasting with champagne, but I was focused on the door. Every time it creaked, my heart leaped, hoping it was him coming to tell me he was ready. My mother kept giving me pitying looks, her eyes red-rimmed. She knew him better than I did. She knew that when Richard made a decision, he was like a stone wall. When the music finally started, the soft, orchestral swell of the violin, I stood in the vestibule, my hand shaking against my bouquet. I looked for him. I looked for the man who had taught me to ride a bike and held me when I scraped my knees. I saw him through the crack in the door. He wasn't standing in the back waiting for me. He was already seated in the front row, his arms crossed, his face a mask of iron. He wasn't coming for me. He had decided in front of everyone we knew that his pride was more important than his daughter's heart. I felt my world shatter in that silent hallway. The silence in the hallway felt like it was crushing the lungs out of my chest. My mother hurried over, her face pale. "Elena, honey, he won't budge," she whispered, her voice breaking. "He says if you're choosing this life, you're walking into it alone." The betrayal didn't feel like a sharp cut. It felt like a heavy, cold weight sinking into my soul. My own father was sitting 30 feet away, intentionally choosing to humiliate me on the most important day of my life. He wanted me to crawl. He wanted me to beg him, to admit he was right, or to break down in tears so he could feel the power of his control. For a moment, I almost did. I felt the hot sting of tears behind my eyes. I felt small, discarded, and deeply unloved. I looked at the floor, wondering if I should just cancel the music and run away, but then a shadow fell over me. "Elena, is everything all right?" I looked up and saw Arthur. Arthur wasn't family, at least not by blood. He was my boss at the architectural firm where I'd worked for the last 4 years. Arthur was a silver-haired man in his late 60s, known for being tough but incredibly fair. Over the years, he had become a mentor to me. He was the one who stayed late to help me finish my first big project. He was the one who encouraged me to marry Marcus, telling me that ambition is good, but a partner who supports your soul is rare. Arthur had been standing nearby, sensing the sudden shift in the atmosphere. He looked at my father sitting stubbornly in the front row, and then he looked at me, shaking, pale, and broken. He didn't ask for an explanation. He saw the whole story in my eyes. The anger I expected to feel didn't come. Instead, a strange sense of clarity washed over me. Why was I mourning a man who was using my happiness as a bargaining chip? Why was I crying for a father who saw me as a possession rather than a person? "He's not coming, Arthur," I whispered. The words feeling like lead in my mouth. Arthur didn't skip a beat. He stepped forward, offering his arm with a grace that made my breath catch. "Well then," he said softly, "it would be the greatest honor of my life if you'd allow me to walk you down that aisle. Not as your boss, Elena, but as someone who knows exactly how much you are worth." I looked at Arthur's arm, then back at the closed doors. I realized that family isn't always the people who share your DNA. It's the people who show up when the world goes dark. My father wanted to show the world my shame, but Arthur was offering to show the world my strength. I took a deep breath, wiped a single stray tear from my cheek, and linked my arm through his. My father thought he was leaving me stranded, but he actually freed me to choose a better path. As the doors opened, I didn't look at the floor. I held my head high, fixed my eyes on Marcus, and stepped forward. The gasp that went through the church was audible. Everyone knew Richard. Everyone knew he was supposed to be the one beside me. As Arthur and I began our walk, I saw my father's head whip around. The look on his face was one I will never forget. It wasn't just shock, it was a total collapse of his ego. He had expected me to stumble, to come find him, or to walk down alone and embarrassed. Instead, he saw me being escorted by a man who held more respect in our city than Richard ever would. As we passed the front row, I didn't look away. I looked my father right in the eyes. I didn't look angry. I didn't look hurt. I simply looked, finished. I smiled a small, sad smile of goodbye to the version of him I used to love. I saw his face turn a deep shade of red, realized he had lost his power, and watched him shrink into his seat. He had tried to make a statement, but the only person he hurt was himself. By staying seated, he had publicly announced that he was a man who would abandon his child over a grudge. When we reached the altar, Arthur leaned in and kissed my cheek. He whispered, "You're a queen, Elena, don't ever forget it." Then he took his seat, not in the back, but right in the front where a father should have been. The rest of the ceremony was a dream. When Marcus took my hands, they weren't shaking anymore. The love in his eyes reminded me that I hadn't lost anything that day. I had only filtered out the toxicity. At the reception, my father tried to approach me, perhaps to offer a hollow apology or to demand why I had embarrassed him, but I didn't give him the stage. I simply told him, "You made your choice, Dad. You chose a chair over your daughter. I hope it was comfortable." I haven't spoken to him much since that day. It's been a year, and while there is a quiet ache for the father I wished I had, there is a profound peace in the life I actually have. I learned that day that you cannot force someone to love you correctly. You cannot beg for a seat at a table where you aren't respected. If you are facing a betrayal today, if someone you love is trying to diminish your light to serve their own pride, let them. Let them stay seated. Let them walk away, because when they do, they make room for the people who truly deserve to stand by your side. Justice isn't always about a grand explosion. Sometimes it's simply walking toward your happiness and never looking back.